On August 10, 3 weeks after the press conference about his transition to the professionals, Yuzuru Hanyu held an open-chair practice training session at Sendai Rink. He demonstrated many difficult jumps and a high 4-axel, which instantly caused excitement. It was what could be called the best technique in the world. Now, after announcing his transition to the pros, he spoke about the ideal development he draws himself. August 10, 2022, 11:30 a.m. Hanyu Yuzuru appears at the rink and nonchalantly begins his warm-up, while 88 members of the press surround him at a distance of about a meter and watch. As the official live YouTube camera moved closer to his face, Hanyu Yuzuru concentrated on each exercise, as if controlling the space. The key was her axis. How do you create an even, thin, axis in a jump? Leading exercises to achieve this goal were detailed and carefully practiced one by one. First, the shoulder blades are stretched by running with rotation of the arms, and then the exercise with free movement of the shoulder blades. He stood with his back to the abs, and it was clearly visible as each of them, shoulder blades, moved left and right like a separate living thing. After that, the pectoral muscles were stretched one by one, piece by piece. Next, Hanyu Yuzuru proceeded with his original axis image training. He took a position in the air with his arms and legs pressed together, closed his eyes, and imagined pushing the torsion axis farther and farther into the depths of his body. It was a moment of dialogue with myself, of finding my core. Hanyu Yuzuru revealed that this warm-up contains a new approach that he is working on. This exercise with the air position is to check at what moment, while in the twist, I feel most comfortable. The earlier I grasp that perfect moment, the easier it is for me to jump. For example, jumping the 4 salcho or 4 to loop in the second half of the program, it changes depending on how cleanly I entered the axis of the twist, how I distributed my strength. That's what I'm focusing on right now. It's also for the 4-axel, but it's an undercurrent for all jumps. Once the image of the axis is mastered, he moves on to an active body warm-up. A sharp backward left turn engages the muscles that begin the twist. Then an opening of the arms to simulate a lunge. Also, sharp exhalations using the abdominal muscles as a breath check as he enters the axis. After all this preparation, it's finally time to do jumping rounds, floor jumps. He does 2 triple jumps on the spot. Then 4 3-axels. The exercise is not to jump an unreasonable number of times, but to focus on the right axle. This warm-up was very innovative, highlighting the deep thinking of Hanyu Yuzuru, who became a professional. On-ice training also began with the original rollout. His own version of the slip/run with Mohawks roll, which he always did at the Toronto Cricket Club. Even as a competitor, he skated at a certain speed to let his body get used to the movements on the ice. But today's movements were different. They were cautious/small. Slowly skating, he focused on checking the position of his center of gravity. Making unnecessary movements engages muscles that aren't really needed, and fails to mark subtle sensations in the body. The way he carefully executed the movements, thinking only of the essentials, it looked as if he was cautiously advancing on the narrow path to the 4-axel. Back to reality, Hanyu Yuzuru began to execute jumps one by one. After a series of 3 Ritberger, 3 Lutz, 3 flip, he performed the 3-axel from the ship. Then he immediately turned on the music of the program in heaven, and earth, and cleanly landed cascades of 4 toehold plus 3 toehold and 4 toehold plus Euler plus 3 salcho. It was phenomenal. When it came to practicing jumps, first he would jump without music at a comfortable timing and then with music. But he didn't make that compromise and suddenly jumped quadruplets exactly to the music. His attitude of not just performing the quadruple cleanly, but fitting it into the music, reflects a high level of professionalism. Next, to the music of Hope and Legacy, with which he won the 2017 World Championships, he took off his white jacket. That was the beginning of the main part. I was again amazed at his physical ability when I noticed that so far he had been jumping in his jacket. Then he jumped 4 Ritberger. Since the world's first successful performance by Hanyu Yuzuru in 2016, this is the most difficult jump that few athletes have managed cleanly. Under the current rules, the 4 Lutz and 4 Flip are rated higher, but in fact, the 4 Rittberger has the least number of successful executions. Given the statistics, the International Skating Union announced in May 2020 that it would revise the rules so that the quadruple Rittberger, Flip and Lutz would be graded the same. In July, however, it withdrew the amendment, citing the need to avoid the burden on athletes of changing the rules during a coronavirus pandemic. Even without giving the change a go, the feeling still remains that the 4 Rittberger is, in one way or another, the most difficult of all quadruplets for athletes. Yuzuru Hanyu, who has turned pro, performs it with ease. As we move away from the intoxicating emotions, he speeds up and lands a cascade 4 Rittberger plus 3 to loop. He claps and nods to himself. That's the way it's supposed to be. No one has ever managed to perform this cascade in an official competition, which means if he had jumped it there, he would have been first in the world. Actually, I had a lot of doubts about whether to jump 4 Rittberger plus 3 to loop or 4 Rittberger plus 3 Rittberger, but this time I settled on the to loop. The truth is, I am seriously training cascades with 4 Rittberger, but I am not sure if it will be possible to put them into programs, and if there is a need for such complicated elements in my activity, which I now intend to do. And I'm thinking, it's no good by the scores either. Maybe performing it, no need. But, I wanted to show how much potential I have. Saying that, he smiled so mischievously. There was no indication that he was concerned about becoming first in the world. For a professional, Hanyu Yuzuru no longer cares whether or not the International Skating Union gives him recognition. He will continue to demonstrate his skills as a professional at a higher level than current skaters. The spirit that he strives for perfect skating, not obsessing over competition and scoring, was clearly evident here. A journalist who apparently admires or at least respects Yuzuru very much as an athlete. A journalist who understands Yuzuru's level and how professional he is. A lot of attention to the details of the open training, the technique that Yuzu uses and probably developed himself, the information about his fight with the 4-axel.